notions of what this bring on people that I just owe a debt of gratitude for us, and so that became our mantra. Like, we need to understand our why.
You're welcome.
It really has been
which
amazing.
forced us to
really
really
and one of the days,
it's amazing.
Now,
I haunted your Twitter feed.
Okay, that's nice.
It's amazing.
You're welcome.
And I wanted to start with something that you said. You can learn about us. It's amazing. Now, I haunted your Twitter feed.
Okay.
People are
It's
still
amazing.
Thank you.
And I wanted to start
really
with
found
something
that you put on
you
there.
seem to understand.
You said,
people.
what are some
we can learn about our
key
future
traits
from our
about
past
just
because
humans
regardless
that every
of
leader should
technology or the speed of innovation, people are still people.
Well, I think one of the things that we forget is
thing
that
that
we
I
are a
really
legacy
found
machine
interesting
working
is
in
you
a very
seem to
different
understand
environment
people.
than we
What are
were
some
designed
key
for.
traits about just humans
our
that every
species
leader should know?
sort of started showing up about 50,000 years ago. There
I think
were
one of the
other
things that
species
we
that existed
forget
at the time
is that
they died
we are a
off,
legacy
we
machine,
survived,
working
and it was
in a
those
very
evolutionary
different
traits that
environment
gave
than
us
we
the
were,
opportunity to
designed for.
outlive our competition,
our
but also
species
survive and thrive.
sort of started
even as the
showing up about
environment around us
50,000 years
changed.
ago.
There were other hominid species that existed at
we
the
lived in
time.
populations
They
that were
died
never
off,
bigger than about
we
150
survived.
people for
And it was those
40,000
evolutionary
of the
traits that
50,000
gave
years
us
that
the
we've lived on this
opportunity
planet.
to
It's only the past
outlive
10,000
our
years,
competition, but
with
also
farming
survive and
that we've been
thrive,
living in
even as the
populations
environment
that were
around us
larger
changed.
than that. In other words, we're not made for this.
Which means
We
all
live in
the
populations that
rules
were never
of being
bigger than
human
about 150
are exactly
people
the same
for
as they used to
40,000
be
of the 50,000
when we were
years
living
that
in
we've lived on this
populations of
planet.
about
It's only the
150.
past 10,000
And so
years.
if you can
with
understand
farming
those
that
things,
we've been
you really
living in
understand what
populations
works and what doesn't,
that
that
were
were
larger than that.
In other words,
we're not made for this. The fact of the matter is, we are social
being
animals.
human are
And we
exactly the
respond
same as they
to the
used to be
environments we're in.
when we were living in
Always.
populations of
Our
about
very
150.
survival depends on our ability to
if you can
cooperate
understand
and
those
trust
things, you really understand
with
what
the
works
people
and what
that
doesn't
we live
work,
or
regardless
work
of the
with,
conditions.
right? The fact of the matter is, we are
a good
social
person
animals,
and put them in a
and we
bad
respond
environment
to the environments
and that
we're in.
person will do
Always.
bad things.
Our very survival depends on our ability to cooperate,
trust, and maybe they've even performed
with the
bad
people
acts.
that we live.
You put them in a good
or work
environment,
with,
right? And they're capable of turning their lives around.
You can take a
and
good
becoming
person
remarkable
and put them in a
members
bad
of
environment.
society. In other words, it's
and
not
that
the person
will do bad
it's
things.
the environment. You can take a person
Leaders
who maybe
are responsible
the
for
group
that
doesn't
environment.
trust. Maybe
And
they've
I think
even
leaders
performed
forget that.
bad acts.
Leaders think that they're
you put them in a
responsible
good
for the
environment.
results.
There's
And
not
they're
a leader
capable
on
of
the
turning
planet
their lives around
that is
and being
responsible for the
remarkable
results.
members of
A leader is
society.
responsible
In other words,
for
it's
the
not
people
person
who are
it's the
responsible
environment.
for the results.
Leaders
take care
are
of that,
responsible
take
for
care of
that
the people,
environment.
take care of the environment.
And I think leaders forget
things go
that.
just fine.
Leaders think that they're responsible for the results.
You know, we're
There's
obsessed
not a
with this
leader on the
idea of like
planet
getting the right people
that
on
is
the bus.
responsible for
You
the
know,
results.
as if it's
The
this
leader is
game that you
responsible
just
for
sort of
the
keep
people
changing
who
people
are
out.
responsible for the
You know,
results.
some sort of
If you take care of that,
mix and
take care of the
match or
people,
something.
take care of the
But we
environment.
never ask which
Things go
bus
just fine.
and who's driving the bus.
You know, we're obsessed
because
with this
it's
idea of
not-
like getting the right people on the bus.
The bus
you know?
matters.
As if it's this game that you just sort of keep
So
changing people out.
I'm
You know,
more
some sort
obsessed
of,
with what happens
sort of mix
to
and
people
match or something.
But we never
when
ask
they come
which
together
bus
in
and who's
protected or
driving the
unprotected
bus.
environments and how we
You
respond to
know,
those
because it's not.
That was a key insight for me.
It's, the
like
bus
you,
matters.
You say that you recursively ask why.
So
until you get to the point where you
I'm
can't go
more
backwards
obsessed with
anymore.
what happens to
And
people.
That to me is one of those
when they
moments,
come
like,
together
when you
in
understand that
protected
humans
or
just by
unprotected
their
environments and
nature,
how we
they
respond to those
react to their
environments.
environment.
That was
All
a
of a
key
sudden,
insight
it
for me.
becomes
You
like
critical
you
of
say
the
that you
bus.
recursively
Not
ask
only who's
why
on the bus,
until
but
you
what
get
is
to
the
the
point
point
where
where
you
you can't
can't
go
go
backwards.
backwards
So I get it from a leadership
and
perspective.
that
when
to me
you
is
have
one of
rank,
those moments. Like,
when
which
you understand
you
that
do
humans
very
just
good
by their
job
nature,
of
they
delineating
react to
between
their
a leader
environment.
and
All of a
rank.
sudden, it becomes
Help
pretty
people
critical to
understand
think
how
about
if
the
you
bus.
don't
Right.
have rank,
not only
how
who's
you
on the
could
bus,
still
but what
be
is
a
the leader
what's that
for
environment?
change. So I get it from a
in an
leadership
environment that
perspective
needs
when
change.
you have rank.
So as you said,
which you
leadership
do
has
a
nothing
very
to
good
do
job
with rank.
of delineating between a leader
leadership
and
is a
rank.
responsibility.
Help people
As you
understand
gain
how
rank,
if you
you may have
don't
more
have
responsibility
rank, how you
over
can
the lives
still
of
be a
more people,
leader
but it
for
doesn't change the nature of leadership.
in
I
an
know many,
environment
many
that
people who
needs
sit at the
change.
highest levels of
So,
organizations.
as you said,
who are
leadership
not
has
leaders.
nothing to do
They
with
have
rank.
authority, right?
And we do as they tell us
Leadership is a
because they have authority
responsibility.
over us, but we wouldn't
As you
follow
gain
them.
rank, you may have more
And yet I know many
responsibility
people
over the lives
who've
of more
made a
people,
choice,
but
who
it
have
doesn't
no
change
rank.
the nature of
But they've made a
leadership.
choice
I
to
know
look
many,
after the
many
person
people
to
who
the
sit
left
at the
of them,
highest
look after
levels
the
of
person to the right of them,
organizations
who are not
and we
leaders.
would follow them.
They have
anyway.
authority, and that's
And
what
we do as they
leadership
tell
is.
us because
It's
they
the
have authority
responsibility
over us,
to
but we
take
wouldn't
care of
follow
the people
them.
around us.
And yet I
People
know
with
many
whom we work.
people who've made a choice, who have no
And
rank.
leadership
but
is
they've
a
made choice
practice
to
like
look
any
after
other.
the person to the left of them, look after the person
There's a
to the right
skill
of them.
that can be learned,
and we would follow them anyway. way. And that means it requires practice. You don't just suddenly get a promotion, you're now in a management position and you're a leader. Right? That's not how it works. And if only, leadership is a practice like any other. If only, I know. The reality is we have to learn it and we have to practice it and we have to get good at it, which is what the junior ranks requires practice. So even if you suddenly get a promotion, you're now in a management position and to make decisions that will impact the entire organization. You do have the ability, right, to make decisions that will impact the life of another human being. The reality is we have to learn how they feel about their own jobs, get good at it, how well their responsibility. So even if you goes, how easily they can get work done, how supported they feel, how supported they feel if they make a mistake, to make decisions decisions that will impact the life of another human being. That's all within your control. How they feel about their own jobs. It's the same thing as being in a relationship, or being a friend. Responsibility, being a good friend. How easily they can get work done. How supported that our friends can rely on us. How supported they feel if they make a mistake. Do they feel that they can turn to you and ask you for help? That's all within your control. At the end of the day, it's the same thing as being in a relationship. Becoming a leader is about a transition. Being a good friend. Everybody has to go through it if you want to become a leader. Means that our friends can rely on us. As an aside, I will say, leadership is like parenting in the sense that everybody has the capacity to be at the end of the day. That doesn't mean everybody wants to be a leader is about a transition. And that doesn't mean everybody should be. And everybody has to go through it if you want to become a leader. Leadership is the same. Everyone has the capacity to be a leader. As an aside, I will say, it doesn't mean everybody wants to be parenting, and it doesn't mean everybody should be. Everybody has the capacity. And the reason is it comes with massive. That doesn't mean everybody wants to be a parent. Sometimes, and that doesn't mean everybody just don't want it. It's a lifestyle they choose. Leadership is the same. Everyone has the capacity to be a leader. But if someone everybody wants to be a leader, that doesn't mean everybody should be a leader. They would like to have. And the reason is it comes with massive responsibility. Then they have to acknowledge that sometimes they will or need to go. People just don't want it. It's a lifestyle they choose not to have. When we're very junior, the only thing we have to do is be good at our jobs. But if someone chooses, that's it. That is some people go get advanced degrees. They would like to become do their jobs, engineers or then they have to acknowledge that if you're good at your job, or need to go through a transition. And eventually, when we're very junior, the only thing we have to do is now responsible for the people who do the job. Right? Some people go get advanced degrees. Nobody teaches us how to do that and how to do their jobs. We just expect them to be good at leadership. And if you're good at your job, it's as if we put somebody in front of a machine and demand eventually you'll never show them how to use the machine. Position where you're now responsible. And so the reason we get managers, the reason we get micromanagers, the reason we get bad leaders is because we just expect them nobody showed them how to do the job of leadership, for one. It's as if we put somebody in front of the machine and demanded results. Of course they're going to tell you to do it their way because they actually do know how to do it. So the reason we get managers, the reason we get micromanagers, the reason we get bad leaders, and the transition we have to make is because that we are no longer responsible for the job of leadership, for one. And two, they can't help themselves. Of course they're going to tell you to do it their way because they actually do know how to do it better than you because that's what got them to manage the promotion in the first place. Who's responsible for the results. And the transition we have to make is that we are no longer responsible for the CEOs and I'm like, what's your priority? As I said before, my priority is my customer. Like someone who will then impact your customer. You know, you have no impact. Leaders are responsible for the people at all. Who are responsible for the people. What you can do for the people is screw with someone's life. For the customer. Who will then impact your customer. Get that chain right. That is the chain of command. Get that chain right. Who will then impact your customer. And everything goes just fine. Get that chain right. Leaders are responsible for the people. And then the people who are touching the customer, inventing the product, selling the product, for the customer, figuring out ways how to build the company, manage the numbers, that is manage the chain of command, manage the operations. In other words, all the heavy lifting. And everything goes just fine. Get that chain wrong. And those people will spend more time and then the people who are touching the customer, inventing the product, selling the product, figuring out ways how to build the company, manage the numbers, manage the processes, manage the operations. In other words, all the heavy employees to feel the need, get that to send a CYA email, and those people will spend more time protecting themselves from you. They're taking time and energy out of their job, away any company, for example, the company's mission, where it is standard practice in that company themselves for employees to feel the need to send a CYA email. Any company where it is standard practice for people to feel the need that they're taking time and energy out of their good things they've done in their careers just in case they need it, you know, is a sign that they're taking time and energy out of their day away from doing their job in order to protect themselves from their own needs. That's what that is practice. Those are signs of to keep a folder of all the good things they've done in their careers just in case they need it, you know, is a sign that they're taking time and energy out of their day away from doing their job in order to protect themselves from their own leaders. That's what that is. Little gossip. Those are signs of bad leadership. We're now working together to compete. All of these things are people acting out of self-interest. That's what politics and gossip is. I'll tell you one quick story. It's a true story. Right? In well-led organizations, you tend to find very little politics and very little gossip. We're Four Seasons in Las Vegas. At that level. We're now working together to compete at a and the service there is really great. I'll tell you one quick story. It's a true story because of the people who work there. And I had an experience with a young man by the name of Noah. Four Seasons in Las Vegas. Which is a coffee shop that they have just there in the lobby. And the service there is I was buying a cup of coffee, and the reason it's such a great hotel is because of the people who work there. Engaging. And I had an experience. I think I gave 100% a young man by the name of my $5 coffee. I know as a barista tip. I mean, this guy was great. Coffee shop that they have just there in the lobby. He was a joy. Cup of coffee, and I asked him, "Do you like charming and funny?" He said to me, "I love my job without skipping." And I think I gave 100% tip. I think what is it? $5 coffee. I think I gave a $5 tip. I mean, this guy was your job. I love talking to him. He was a joy. And I asked him throughout the day. Managers will walk past and ask how I'm doing. And I asked, "What is it that?" He said, "Not just my manager doing." Any manager. That you love your job. He says, "I feel supported here." He says, "Quote, I can be without skipping a beat." He says, throughout the day. Then managers will walk past and ask, and then he says to me, if there's anything that I need. Also work. He said, not just my manager, Caesar's Palace, any manager.
Wow.
And he says, I feel supported here. He says, quote, I can be myself and catch us if we do something wrong. Then he says, when I go to work at Caesar's Palace, I keep my head just under the radar because I don't want to get in trouble. I also work. He says, I just want to get through the day and make a paycheck. And there, right, the Four Seasons will be diametrically when I go to work at Caesar's Palace, I keep my head that I just under the radar because I don't want to get in trouble. Not because of Noah. I just want to get through the day and make a paycheck.
Right.
And the joke is, if I were to go talk to the managers over the experience that I have at the Four Seasons, no, it's you. They'll say, but you don't understand. We cannot get good work out of our people. Look, that I have. Look, no matter how hard we try and how hard we push them, not because of Noah. They just don't. So we either have to replace them or push them harder. And the joke is, if I were to go respond to the environments we're in, get the environment right, you get the right behavior, get the environment wrong, you get the wrong behavior. Good work out of our people. If that is what has happened, look, no matter how hard we try and how hard we push them, they just don't. So we either have to replace them or push them harder. No, we respond to the environments we're in. Get the environment right, you get the right behavior. Get the environment wrong, you get the wrong behavior. If that is what has happened, and astonishingly, it is because of leadership. Look, I'm embarrassed that I have a career.
Yeah, there was
I talk about things like trust and cooperation. Why is there demand for my work? You know, but the fact that there is, I'll take it as an opportunity.
Hilarious because it's so terrifying.
But what's really and astonishing abominable is that I'm embarrassed that I have a career. A new idea. I talk about things like trust and cooperation. Books galore, and speeches galore, and articles galore. But the fact that there is, I'll take it as an opportunity. We all kind of say the same thing from a different angle. You can pick your flavor, whichever message resonates most with you. This is not, and yet people don't do it. Like, what's the hang-up? Books galore and speeches galore and articles galore, which is what leadership is. We all kind of say the same thing from a different angle. You can pick your flavor, whichever message resonates most with you. And yet people don't do it.